elimination here ahead as the Birds take on the Yankees and, of course, come back home to take on the first-place Cleveland Indians. But college football around the corner now. We'll get to plenty of NFL next week as the Ravens begin training camp. But I noticed this week when my pal Brian Baldinger was running around Dallas at the Big 12 press conference and media day and all that good stuff, that it's all happening. Big 10 is on Monday. The ACC's later this week. Bill Bender covers all things college football for the Sporting News. He is their national college football writer. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at BillBender92. And just because he lives in Columbus doesn't mean we hate him. What's going on, Bill? We've had to learn to hate the Big Ten around here, you know? We had that whole, sort of southeastern thing happen, and we need to figure out how to hate bad weather in the Rust Belt, man.
Yeah, it gets cold here. Well, thanks for having me on, as always. And, we're full swing media day season and just churning them out. That's what it's all about.
Well, you wrote a piece this week about the best players. So let's start with there. We'll have plenty of time to evaluate. We did coaches last time, I think, and now we're doing players. We'll do teams before it's all over with. Some thoughts about this year with the Derrick Henrys being gone, but plenty of talent coming back that's familiar to people this year, right?
Yeah, it's a star-studded year for real. I mean, if you look at the top with a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who did what he did last season, then you got other running backs like Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, then the quarterbacks. I mean, Deshaun Watson, I think he is the best player in college football, and other quarterbacks like J.T. Barrett, Baker Mayfield. I mean, the top 10 on this list is ridiculous, and they're all guys that are fully capable, either being a number one draft pick or the Heisman Trophy winner.
Well, and I guess if you see these guys, these are the guys you're expecting to be, top half of the draft at the very least, whether it works out or not. From a quarterbacking perspective, that's always the interesting thing for me, because everything, as we found out with the Ravens on the clock this year, comes back to which quarterbacks are going to be in, out, do well, and get injured to some degree. Some thoughts about the quarterbacks this year?
Yeah, like I said, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Seth, even you go down to Seth Russell, Greg Ward Jr. I think the best NFL prospect in this top 40 is probably Josh Rosen, but he's only a sophomore at UCLA, and I think he'll continue to develop and take the next step. I mean, it's quarterback position dominated game, and that should reflected in this list. I think there are more quarterbacks ranked in this top 40 than any other position.
It's interesting you'd say about Rosen at UCLA. So much of that goes hand in hand with winning. I know they have higher aspirations out there in LA. And, hey, let's be honest, for USC ruling the roost there for the better part of a decade and a half during the Pete Carroll, the Rams are there now. I mean, it's a whole different ballgame out there right now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, and he's got a little moxie to him. I remember last year, after watching him in the Virginia game when he started the season, you thought you were looking at just an unbelievable prospect. And he really is. He's got all those tools. I mean, obviously UCLA didn't have the year they wanted last year, but injuries played a role in that. But if you just watch him play, and if he takes that next leap, UCLA should be pretty good in that Pac-12 South.
I have a soft spot for all things Ole Miss, even though they cheat from time to time. Chad Kelly's of great interest to me. And, I know Ole Miss has gotten off to a couple of decent starts over the year. Last year, rough off season for sure. Interesting spot for him down in the SEC.
Yeah, and he's the top-ranked SEC quarterback. I know that's reflected in the fact that 3 SEC quarterbacks went to media days. It was only him and Josh Dobbs and Trevor Knight. And, he's a good player. He's got an NFL skill set. I think he'll get a shot at the next level. And, he plays with that fire. I mean, they are the only team in the country that's beat Alabama the last 2 years, and that shows. They just need to show a little more consistency, and he probably does too.
College football is wild, right? Because we sit around here doing the NFL. We cover it, blanket. We're in Baltimore. Obviously, the Ravens mean everything, even in a year when the Orioles were in first place, quite frankly. I'm learning that. I mean, it's all a learning process after 25 years, Bill. But, I would say this on the NFL side of things. You get these preseason games, and they're really fool's gold, right? I've talked fantasy football this week. What is there to see in August? College football, everything's more like sort of, scrimmagey and getting ready for things and trying to keep guys healthy. But we really don't know much about a lot of these teams till they actually take the field. And there's a lot more intrigue in college football this time of year, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you don't get the preseason benefit of the doubt. And then you throw in just a monster week one with, 10, 11 heavy-hitting games. I mean, the way I put it this way was I sent that text to buddies. I had 3 really close friends that I talked to every day. And I texted them. I said, which game's the best one in week one? And between the 4 of us, we had 4 different answers. So I think that's a sign of how good the college football playoff era has been for college football. It makes it that much more exciting to get ready for week 1.
Who's the team to watch this year as you see it that's not amongst the elite of the elite? Who's the team that's going to make a step this year that you're watching?
One of the Washingtons, either Washington or Washington State. I think Mike Leach's team did that last year, and they've got 2 players on that list we talked about, Luke Falk and Gabe Marks, and they're going to throw it around, make it interesting. Washington has a good running back combination as well with Chris Peterson in his 3rd year. So those are 2 teams kind of off the radar. They're on late. You might not watch them enough, but if we get into November, I wouldn't be surprised if they're hanging around.
As I said, plenty of names, and you've talked about Deshaun Watson. Certainly, anything less than where they were last year would be a major setback for Clemson at this point. They've now moved to the front of the class, right? And having a quarterback come back like this with this much buzz, expectations are high there in Clemson.
Yeah, huge year for them. Huge year in terms of the hype, and they have that quarterback. Their offense should be really good, and I think Brent Venables will work on replacing some of the guys they lost on defense. But they do have a tough schedule. They open at Auburn, they play at Georgia Tech, they play at Florida State. Those are all tough games, and the ACC has improved its overall quality with some of the off-season hires like Mark Richt, Bronco Mendenhall, Justin Fuente, Dino Babers. So, Clemson, I like them a lot. I think they're in line to get back to the college football playoff, but it won't be as easy as it was last year.
We are chatting with Bill Bender. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at BillBender92. He is the Sporting News National College Football writer. He's been running around to these media days, and we will have a Big Ten day next week. And I know you're in Columbus making your way to Chicago. DJ Durkin and the Terps. Look, we've been through this so many times, bro, right? I mean, I've been here from the beginning, from Claiborne, for crying out loud. So I've seen all the changes. I've seen all the promises. Obviously, this ACC to Big Ten thing is a little bit of a rough transition, even though they beat Penn State and gave Ohio State a nice little run there at one point as well, beat Michigan. But I don't know that everybody else is a little more souped up at this point, that this is going to take a little time. What do you make of the Maryland program, and what are your expectations for DJ Durkin this year?
I mean, yeah, you kind of said it all. I think his first year, he learned lessons under 2 coaches that are going to be at the top of the Big Ten East for a while in Urban Meyer and Jim Harbaugh. So he has that benefit. I think he started off on the recruiting trail and did well. And, the biggest problem for Maryland, just from a national standpoint last year, is the quarterback play was terrible. And that got them in trouble. They threw way too many interceptions. And, looking at their schedule, just out of the chute here, there's a chance it's not dumb to say they should be 4-0 when they go play at Penn State. So, the chance this schedule's set up for a fast start for them. And, it's obviously backloaded, though, when they play Michigan State at Michigan and Ohio State later in the season, and a trip to Nebraska.
Yeah, I've noticed the backside of that as well. They're going to need all they can get in the beginning of the year. But from a confidence level, I don't think anybody here expects them to go to Nebraska and win later or expects them to beat Ohio State. So, I guess it's all about expectations. The bar's set relatively low for Maryland, right? So, anything that feels like a step up, but it's all about getting the kids, right? And that's supposed to be where DJ Durkin's going to be a difference maker, and certainly all the Under Armour money should be a difference maker.
Well, you mentioned the confidence booster, and that's all it is. I mean, if they get off to a fast start, say they come out and go 3-0, 4-0, and then go beat Penn State, that's going to work on the recruiting trail. And then if the realistic side, if you go, Ohio State comes in and beats you and you lose at Michigan or you lose to Michigan State, then Durkin can, what have we learned from these guys? How far are we really away? And, can they recruit? Can they bring in guys from, and I think I talked to you about this last time. I just, being a kid from Ohio, we used to think this was the it area for high school football, but that Mid-Atlantic now, it's full of good high school football, good recruits, and that's something Durkin's looking to tap into.
Well, we hope it's more fertile over the next decade than it's been over the last decade. Certainly hoping to keep the better players at home, which has, been an issue in Maryland for a long time.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, these kids from the D.C. area, and I mean, you take it up to New Jersey, Harbaugh's developed quite a pipeline there, whether it's getting Jabril Peppers, who, by the way, I mean, most unique football player I've ever seen. He can play 10 positions. And then getting Rashawn Gary last year. So,
but not all 10 at the same time, though.
If they asked him to, he might try. But, that's where it is. I mean, you got to be able to recruit there. And Durkin, obviously, with his time at Michigan, may have made some inroads with schools in the Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania area. And that's going to help Maryland long term.
Coaches on the hot seat this year, big names. Anybody out there in your mind, sort of got to get 9 or 10 wins to be hanging around?
I think a big week 1 game on that is UCLA, Texas A&M, both teams that didn't have the offseason they wanted necessarily. Kind of had bad years last year, 5 losses each. And, whether it's Kevin Sumlin or Jim Moore Jr., I think they're going to need that one. The Big Ten, I mean, Purdue's probably, Darrell Hazel's probably on the hot seat, but from a national level, not too many people are going to go crazy about Purdue football. But, those are kind of the ones that stand out early. But I'm sure more the way college football works, I mean, last year I remember there was a day where what happened? Steve Sarkisian and Steve Spurrier both resigned on the same day.
I remember that.
That's what can happen.
Well, and in the middle of things, no less. The Baylor thing's also fascinating, too, where programs that have been, that moved to that upper echelon have had turmoil.
Right, yeah, and I think they brought the right guy in to kind of clean some of that stuff up with Jim Grobe. He's a high-character guy. He was a high-character guy at Ohio University and Wake Forest, and he'll do the same there. I think he'll do a good job, getting them through a rough period. I don't know what it means for a wins and losses standpoint, but I know this, Jim Grobe's probably never coached a team with that much talent that he has at Baylor this season.
Great having you on, Bill. As always, we'll be following your journey out on Twitter as well as at Sporting News, and I know you'll be attending these media days, and there's plenty to say at this point. Again, we don't say much until they actually kick the ball off, and those games count, so that makes college football a lot more fun, but less to talk about maybe during the month of August. Less drama going on where every whistle blown in Owings Mills means something around here. Bill, I appreciate you coming on, man, as always.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
You got it. Bill Bender 92 out on Twitter, and Bill Bender at Sporting News of Columbus, Ohio, where the Terps will be seeing those folks coming in this year. We'll see how that turns out. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Download the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear. Morning newspaper, 7 a.m. It comes to your email inbox. That is powered up by Planet Fitness and keeps you abreast of everything first thing in the morning over your Royal Farms coffee. You get the morning newspaper. It's perfect. Last but not least, breaking news. Anything happens with the Orioles or the Ravens, the Terps, you'll get it first on the WNST Tech Service. That is all brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me for all complaints, criticism. Well, I prefer praise, but, it's not always that way. If you got a business note, need something from us, just toss me a note, nasty at WNST.net. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere you are, we are. WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.